I'm happy to introduce to you the topic of evidence-based public health messaging on the non-visual effects of ocular light exposure. I want to thank Manuel Spitzan. I don't know whether he is here, but he offered me his slide deck where he presented the initiative. So I used that one as a concept for what I want to tell you today. For those who don't know me, my name is Marijke Gordijn. I'm a PhD graduated from, or PhD from the medical faculty in Groningen, the Netherlands, in the field of chronobiology, sleep and mood. I'm currently mainly working for my own company, Chrono at Work, which is a spin-off from the university to translate all the knowledge we have on chronobiology and sleep for society. And I'm also a co-founder and board member of the Good Light Group. And the initiative I'm talking today is an initiative from several groups working together. So you see them here on top: the International Commission on Illumination, the Society for Light Research and Circadian Light Rhythms and Circadian Health, the Daylight Academy, the Good Light Group who participated in this, and the Center for Environmental Therapy. And I want to tell you what the initiative is. And I'm also a guest researcher at the University of Groningen. Very recently, a statement was published by the American Heart Association about the role of circadian disruption, chronobiological disturbances for general heart health. And that's quite a strong statement. And I think it is the result of a very large growing interest in the field of chronodisruption and chronobiological health, circadian health. And what you see here is one picture from the paper from Knudsen, published recently. And what you see here is a human being, the central circadian clock in the suprachiasmatic nucleus here in the brain, which is a central clock. And we have all peripheral clocks in our body. And what this publication says is that there are several causes of circadian disruption, as you can think about shift work, irregular sleep timing, just lifestyle parts, jet lag, mistimed eating, mistimed exercise, light at night, and insufficient light in the morning and during the day. So this is seen as the main factors causing this circadian disruption, which has an impact on circadian misalignment in the peripheral clocks and the central clock. And we have circadian rhythms in all kinds of parameters, both in heart health, in blood pressure, in heart rate, but also in temperature, several hormones, but also in fields like alertness, mood, performance, and metabolic parameters. And the interventions to prevent circadian misalignment or to treat circadian misalignment are the main ones is appropriately timed light. Light, especially bright morning light, and dim or no light in the evening and at night. And of course also several other lifestyle factors. Then we support circadian alignment, and that will reduce the risks of weight gain, diabetes, inflammation, hypertension, myocardial infarction, coronary heart diseases, and heart failure, where you see here there is an emphasis on. And they have a list of take-home pearls, how you can support circadian health. And I think for us today, the most important one is that light exposure timing is a therapeutic tool. I think it's also a prevention tool if you do it properly. But the effect depends on its timing relative to a person's internal clock. Well, that's a very correct statement, but it's not simple translation to industry or to society. I have another very recent paper where I participated myself to talk about mental health. What you see here is a study from one of my PhD students, Ina Buschhausen. And what she did was she took a big Dutch lifelines cohort study, and she analyzed the risk of developing a depression in the next 2.5 hours. And she related that to the time people told us in surveys how much time they spent outdoors in daylight. And what you see here is that with an increasing number of hours of daylight per day, there is a reduced risk of developing a depression in the upcoming 2.5 years, especially in the late chronotypes, so the evening type people, the people who who actually sleep late and wake up late. In these people, the amount of daylight hours is very important to reduce the risks of developing depression, so for mental health. So I showed you on one time the physical health part, and this is the mental health part and the role of light. There are several more studies. We know light is not only used for vision, but it shapes our sleep, our mood, alertness, and mental and physical health. There's a growing evidence for light as a modifiable exposure. And the majority of these evidence is from from laboratory studies. The impact of light has on alertness, on moods, on sleep, and on this biological clock. But there's also a lot of recent epidemiological data, so big studies, as I showed you from our own group, but also from the UK Biobank. And these are also dramatic numbers if you see that. So if we have too much light exposure at night, there's an increased all-cause mortality risk by about 6%. And darker days, so too little light exposure during the day, raises it by 12%. Bright night, so again, light at night, pollution, you can say, increases the risk of obesity by 13%, diabetes by 11%, hypertension by 8%, and dyslipidemia, so fat metabolic factors, by 10%. While bright daytime light reduces those risks by up to 18%. So these are quite big numbers of big epidemiological data. If you talk about mental health, high nighttime light exposure increases the risk of depression by 30%, self-harm 27%, post-traumatic stress disorder by 34%, so quite high values for mental disorder. And again, high daytime light reduces those risks of depression by 19%, self-harm by 24%, and PTSD by 18%, and psychosis 31%. So big numbers about the role of light. And we, of course, all know that therapeutics such as light therapy for seasonal affective disorder or outdoor interventions for myopia prevent those problems. So in general, we can say light exposure, both too little during the day and too much at night, is a modifiable risk factor for mortality, metabolic disease, and mental and ocular health. But there is a big gap. As I told you in the beginning, it's not an easy message. We have talked in several committees and things over the past 10, 20 years, how to translate this to a simple message. And that's not easy. But now we finally came to consensus about this. Because there is a gap. There is a gap. The society doesn't know this. It's complex and we need to simplify the message. It should be consistent so that influencers, journalists, everybody talking about the role of light for public health uses the same language and correct language. Currently, the guidelines and the recommendations are fragmented and conflicting now and then, because in the past they are mainly prepared for the visual part and not the health part. We are all at industry, and in the past, translating this knowledge to industry sometimes went pretty fast without accurate knowledge, without too much knowledge. And now and then this has driven priorities quite early before we really knew enough. And of course, that's still the case. It's still the current state of our knowledge. And we clearly have also at-risk populations, for instance, shift workers who are exposed to light at night where our body expects darkness, elderly children who have much more transparent lenses, low income groups, and there are really great exposure risks. The World Health Organization has several focus points, and for our environment, these issues are mainly focused on UV radiation, air and noise pollution. And there's nothing about visible light and its health impacts. So there's really a lot to do to translate, to bring this knowledge to the general public and also to the World Health Association, to policy, to create evidence-based knowledge. So there's a critical opportunity to integrate all this information with a unified evidence-based guidance. And that's where the Light for Public Health initiative started. The mission is to translate our current knowledge, the cutting-edge research on light and health, into public health policy and action. And the aim is to develop a clear evidence-based consensus statements. And I don't know whether you are have experience in that topic, but getting evidence-based consensus one-liners and statements by researchers, by scientific researchers, is a really difficult job. As a Good Light group, we have tried that over the past 5-6 years as well. And we started with something, but the great thing now is that these statements we currently proposed and published are supported by 5 international qualified, scientifically qualified international organizations. And that's a big step. It builds the bridge between the science-backed evidence and public health and policy. So how did it came so far? The activities in April 20, it was also quite a fast project, I must say. In April 2024, Manuel Spitzan organized a meeting by the Daimler-Benz Stiftung in Ladenburg on a consortium on light and health. And from our group, Jan Denneman from the Good Light group participated in this, and a lot of international high-qualified scientists gathered together and talked about what we need. One of the results, a very fast result, was a white paper drafted by Laura Kervezee from Leiden, who wrote the actually end conclusion that we need coordinated international communication to translate this knowledge, to create communication efforts to the main public. That was in May 2024. Since then, we had a group of people, about 6 people together, having meetings every month by now and then. And we had a certain way, it's called the Delphi method, to come to consensus statements. We went back to the consortium for consensus processes. And finally, in May 2025, we had 26 statements that were published on the International Day of Light on May 17th, and they were presented on a website. And we also wrote a scientific paper, how we came to consensus, and that one was published online and later on, finally, also in paper. And currently, here you see there are 26 statements. Currently, you see here 3 examples, for instance. This is the website. If you use the QR code or the name, you come to the website where you can see all the statements. The full list of 26. We have the one-liners. We have a simplified version. We have contextual information. We have the references, of course, the scientific references that are based on where the consensus statement is based on. We have several visuals that were created to support bringing this knowledge to the public. And this year, only 1 month ago in November, we published these statements in 19 different languages, from Chinese and Russian and Spanish to Dutch, so not only in English. And I think this is a very important step also to to bring this to the public, to society. So everybody all over the world can use these consensus statements in their own language. And they were created by people who know about the content, and in small groups, they agreed on the translation. So this is the current status. There is the paper, there is a website, there is all kinds of actions to bring this knowledge to society, to out. So please also use this in your own communication. If you want to talk to the lay public or to other, use these statements, and they are scientifically backed up. So this is the steps that have been taken, the evidence, the science communication, and public awareness. That's the part we have worked on very, very hard over the past 1.5 year, you could say. But there is a second idea, and that is that these efforts should also be used for policy making, for getting things in European level or a global level, the World Health Association. So the science to the policy is the same. It's evidence, but then we need to create other ways to communicate this message, or policy briefs, and then priority settings. And that is where I haven't met him yet, but I'm very happy to introduce Connor Heaney. He was appointed as a fellow on this topic by Manuel Spitzan, and he's working on the regulatory and policy dimensions of the Light for Public Health initiative. And so I'm very happy to introduce him. Don't see him yet, but he must be on the other screen. And so please, Connor, if there are no questions, I don't know if there are questions, but then I give the floor to Connor.
Okay.
Please use this information of the Light for Public Health initiative, because I think, and that's also the main goal of the Good Light Group, is to inform the lay public, so that if the lay public understands, we get a community that is driven to improve things, either in policy or in industry. So yeah, I would recommend all of you to go to that website, use it in your own language, and if it's not available, there is a link on the website that you can propose yourself as one of the next translators for your language.